I am, sir.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the board meeting. Wednesday, November the 18th, 2020, 4 p.m. This is, I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting, and so we get a roll call. Could I have a roll call? Yes.
Tim Smith is here.
Tim Smith.
Holt Edinger is here.
And myself, Gary Bishop.
Just joined the conference.
Make note that, who was that?
I think it might have been someone on the public line, Gary.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to make known that us three are here, and absent Harris and Wright, Commissioner Wright. I'd like to approve the minutes from the last meeting, Wednesday, October the 28th.
Just joined.
I'll make a motion to approve. Is this hold on?
Can we get a second?
Tim Smith will second.
All righty. Will there be any public comment?
Yes, for a vote.
Pardon me?
Gary, you got to ask for a vote to approve the meeting minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? No opposed. Will there be any public comment? Can they hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you.
Okay. Will there be any public comment?
Is there any public comment?
If not, we're going to go ahead and move into the safety part of it. Mr. Dan McCoy, is he present?
Good afternoon, everyone. In the month of October, we had Winnick Street and the Water Reclamation Department. That's when a mechanic got some dust in his eyes and in his eye. Went to working well. They took a look at it, gave him some drops, and he returned back to work. In the refuse department, we had 4 injuries. 3 of them were scraped and sprains, lifting toters, moving heavy toters. One was a sharp object that punctured a loader's left hand when he was lifting a couch. And all the employees were on restricted work for a period of time and returned back to work, with the exception of one employee, and that's case number 11, and that employee is still on restricted work activity at the refuse department. But hopefully he'll be back to work soon, full duty, and so that's the injury report for October. Are there any questions on that part of it? Are there any questions? Okay, then additional activities. A considerable amount of work has been spent in the last month on the disinfection process programs related to process safety management and risk management programs. We have 17 elements within the risk management program, 14 elements in CSM program. Many of the elements are pretty much the same.
Just joined the conference.
Who joined the conference, please?
Jeff Wright.
This is Jeff, right? Okay, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. And then with those PSM and RMP requirements, we've modified a number of our maintenance and operating procedures. Did quite a bit of training related to that maintenance department. Hot work permit procedure was reviewed. Control of work, lockout, tagout was reviewed.
Again, meetings held with the maintenance departments on that. Process safety information, quite a bit of information modified in that particular section. And then for shift operators, they have a relatively minor role as far as the disinfection process goes, and some training was held for them on all 3 shifts. In addition to that, injury illness investigations that I just talked about and case management took place last month. I continue to provide support for the COVID-19 hazard awareness and prevention activities. Got a request from the Parks Department to provide them some information about confined space entry for their splash pad and some of the requirements that they would need to comply with OSHA in regards to a confined space entry. And then did some substantial revisions to the Refuse Department website. Some of it deals with health and safety and environment, especially trying to let the public know that, what kind of materials should be put in the odors and not be placed in the toters. Hopefully that will help reduce some of our strains and sprint-type injuries that we seem to have in the department. That's a summary of the activities from last month. And are there any questions related to some of what I covered here? No. Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the support.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Jeff, we're on number 6 here.
We're still on 5, Gary. We're still on 5.
Oh, okay.
We got item 5A2. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say that we were scheduled to have an inspection conducted by the EPA for our EPA risk management program. One of the reasons we were going through a lot of this information, but the inspector actually had to cancel the inspection because I think it was his wife came down with COVID, so he wasn't allowed to come out and do the inspection. So they're still probably planning on doing that inspection sometime soon. We should be in pretty good shape. As you know, we're trying to be on top of all this safety stuff, but I just wanted to let you guys know that. And then there's item 5A2 is this invoices. You might remember we approved Mr. McCoy's contract in 2019 for not to exceed $6,480 a month. In October, he exceeded that with an amount of am I getting it right? $10,944. And so I've talked this over with Mr. Meyer, and he thinks that since it went over the contract amount for the month, that we should get the board approval. And so if we could get approval of this month's invoice from Mr. McCoy, because he did do a lot of extra work, I would appreciate it.
This is Holt. I'll make that motion.
Okay, can we get a second?
This is Jeff. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's no opposed.
Okay, I also want to make note that in looking over some of his past invoices, there have been several of them that have been over the $6,000, and we've approved those through approving the docket each month. So I think that I've talked to Mr. McCoy, and we're going to try to come up with a new draft contract for the next board meeting that may be a little closer to the amount of work that he's doing. At some point, we've got to evaluate the overall cost of his contract as compared to, a full-time employee or something. But all in all seriousness, Mr. McCoy does a fantastic job for us. He is a very much on top of all this safety stuff, and he's a very smart man in a lot of things, especially chemistry and chemicals and things like that. I don't know if you know this, but he knows a lot about those types of things, and he looks out for our safety. So at the next board meeting, I'd like to probably have another contract, and we might be looking at increasing that monthly amount so he can stay underneath it each month. Is there any other questions about that?
No.
Mr. Meyer, is there anything else we need to do for that?
No.
Okay. All right, that's all I had then on safety.
Okay then. Number 6, opening up bids and quotes and bids and proposals.
We don't have any this month, Gary.
Okay. Well, number 7, the COVID-19 health emergency update of the district functions.
Okay, I've got 3 COVID update memos that I've sent to all of you so far. We had a couple people that thought they might have been around somebody or were around someone that either tested positive or was having symptoms, or they were having symptoms themselves. And overall, everyone has tested negative so far. Those are the 3 memos. I'm just going to leave it at that. There was, as you probably are aware, if you saw the press release, a few members of the city workforce at City Hall that have tested positive for COVID. So we've also identified anyone that was around those that had personal contact or close contact with anyone that worked at City Hall, and those people are all working from home and or quarantined and or getting tested. So we're trying to look out for that. And then on the 17th memo, it's just that we finally got the last result back from the one person that had been had the symptoms, and he tested negative. I don't have a memo on this, but we do have 2 more people in the refuse department who are exhibiting no symptoms that appear to be related to COVID, but they were around someone who had tested positive, and so they're off work too, pending some testing. So when we get those results back, I'll update the memo. But so far, so good. At the sanitary district, we had the 1 case, and it was pretty mild, and nobody else has been affected.
Mike, I have a question.
Sure, sir.
When those people come in contact or test positive, do they tell the name who it is?
We try not to say the name because of HIPAA rules, but particularly one of the gentlemen, I'm not going to say his name here over the public waves, but the gentleman that actually had the tested positive at COVID, he had no problem with us mentioning his name. At some point, it's a little bit of a tricky situation because sometimes you need to tell other employees who it is so they know if they've been around that person. So we're doing our best. We're doing our absolute best that we can to make sure that what we call first person contact, if you've worked in a situation with someone that's tested positive, then we call that first person. And then, if you have, then if you've been exposed to that first person, we call that second person. So that those people were still coming to work and, taking the precautions of wearing the masks and stuff. But that first person and the person that has any symptoms were basically making them stay off of work and getting tested until they get negative, then they can come back.
Okay. Okay. So you do a little tracing.
Yeah, contact tracing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then item 7D, we're making sure that we have enough supplies of such things as masks and hand sanitizer and table wipes, and we're trying to keep everything clean. We have routines for cleaning the offices, and we've sent out a memo again just recently reminding everyone of the requirement to wear a mask when they're in a building with other people. I mean, I'm not wearing one now, but I'm sitting here just on this conference call, and there's really no need to wear the mask because there's no one around me in the vicinity of me. So okay.
So this is Jeff, and I'm just wondering, is there any advantage to thinking about, or at least opening the discussion with maybe Daniel
on using some of these quick tests. I'm on a project out here, and we have quick tests, and you can get feedback within like 15 minutes. They're not as accurate as going to the hospital or the clinic or something, but if somebody might have a condition or an issue, they can be quick tested and know within like 15 minutes, and then that person can be isolated away from the others.
Dan, you did look.
I'm just throwing it out there for maybe, I don't want to hijack it, but maybe Daniel and
Jeff, I think Dan looked into this a little bit already. Let's see what he's got to say.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good question. Took a good look at it. The test that's out there right now, the primary one, is pretty accurate for a positive, but it is not too accurate for a negative. It'll give you false negatives to close to an acceptable rate. And so what they do is, if you test positive, at least that gives you information that now you need to start doing some contact tracing and find out who the first people were, as Michael defined it, and make sure that those individuals understand, that person tested positive. And then if a person tests negative, they follow up with the longer term, more accurate test that we get through LCare, and that test has a much higher degree of accuracy, and that's what we have to follow up with. So it's good in one respect that you get, if you have a positive result, you're pretty daggone certain that that individual has COVID-19. But if you have a negative, it's much, much less accurate. And so you have to follow up with the longer term. Does that help out, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm thinking it sounds like you thought it through, and it's just seemed nice here, with close contact with the other laborers and whatnot. To have that information available.
I did hear
if a guy tests positive, he can be isolated right away, and at least the other people around him, hey, he tested positive on the quick test. Do you want a quick test, or do you want to go get the longer test? That kind of thing. That's all I was.
Yeah.
We did have one.
I did hear the FDA approved a home test, and this home test is supposed to be very, very accurate, but we're not going to be able to have the availability of that until about spring.
Hey, Dan McCoy and Jeff, I would also like to add that one of our refuse employees who was not exhibiting any symptoms, but was do the contract tracing, was the first person. So we sent them home and we told them they can't come back until they get tested. He went and had one of those rapid tests done and was told the results were negative, but no one would supply any written paperwork of the results. And so we couldn't let him come back to work because wherever the testing was done, they would not even write an email note saying that he was negative. So I don't know how that plays in, but I just wanted to throw that out. And then like Dan McCoy's saying, if you get a negative result, it really doesn't mean anything because it might be a false negative. It might actually be a positive. So, but we can look into that some more. And believe me, we're doing our due diligence on this, trying to make sure that we can, keep our workforce safe and also be productive and get the job done. So far, I think so good, knock on wood. So.
All right. Sounds good.
Michael, let me also, this is Holt, if I could just make a comment. I think that with the worry of all the board members, all of us, and the concern, your updates over the last several months have been really helpful in keeping us up to date as to the plan, as to, the outcomes of some of the plans, if not all of the plans, and keeping it anonymous. It's just been excellent. I think that and I wanted to thank you for keeping us updated, because I'm sure all of us, not just myself, but all of us wonder quite often how things are going down there with regards to COVID. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, good job, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Keep that safe. Keep them that safe.
Okay, we're on to item 8 then, Gary. I don't have anything else unless anybody else has anything on COVID.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the financial report with Scott Kistler. Is he present?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll begin by reading the cash balances. The district operating fund had a balance of $1,587,980.27. The operating municipal account had $37.99. The improvement fund had $902,895.03. The vehicle replacement fund had $65,599.76. The equipment replacement fund had $584,726.41. And the operating grant fund had no balance, for a total in that bank account of $3,141,239.46. The Indian Springs project had $6,381.25, and the Whippoorwill project had $296.52, for a total in that bank account of $6,677.77. The SRF debt reserve fund had $499,558.79, and the SRF bond and interest had $131,118.31, for a total at BNY Mellon of $630,677.10. The stormwater fund had $586,434.59. The refuse municipal account had no balance. The refuse account had $791,714.62. The special revenue fund had $1,120.07. The levy excess fund had $8,522.14. The tax levy grant fund had $110,471.38. And the rainy day fund had no balance, for a total in that bank account of $1,498,262.80. The Carlick remediation account had $243,416.18, for a total cash balance of $5,520,273.31. Just a couple brief comments. Overall, the cash continues to be strong, and that's even with at last month's board meeting, I requested that we fund the improvement fund with $60,000 for each month of the fourth quarter, and then an additional $10,000 in the equipment replacement fund each month. And you can see that that bank balance, it still went up $128,128.87. So overall, the cash looks pretty good. The Carwick went down $144,426.68. That was a payment to Woodruff and Sons, and I believe that's close to being the final payment that we'll be making to them. So I'll answer any questions if anybody's got anything. No. Okay. Okay, then I'll move on. I've included the budget performance reports for the operating fund, the refuse fund, and the stormwater fund. And the last page of all those has a summary of the revenues and expenses. And you can see that we're doing pretty well to budget. So if anybody has any questions, I'll answer them, or you can always email me or call if you see something that you have a question about. But yeah, overall we're doing really well to budget. The next thing I had on my list, I included in the packet the proposed operating budget for 2021. And I went through this again today. The report I gave you in the packet is the combination of the 8 departments that make up the operating fund, and today I spread it across each of the departments, and it actually came out pretty close to what I included in your packet. There's a few things that we may need to adjust a little bit, but nothing very major. The other thing, as you go through it, you'll see that this year we're going to budget for some COVID supplies and equipment and services. Because what happened, last year we didn't have any of that in the budget, but we set up accounts to track the spending in 2020 so that hopefully we'll recoup some of those costs. But this year I went ahead and just put a little bit into the budget for those items. So, and then as far as one of the major items is the $1,250,000 transfer to the other funds. It's like $475,000 to pay for our SRF debt, $120,000 for the vehicle replacement fund, and that pays the leases, basically Crossroad. And if we take out a new lease for the dump trucks, will be covered. And then it includes $420,000 going into the equipment replacement fund. And what that fund does is basically pay back the debt associated with the energy savings program. And then that left $235,000, which we could put into the improvement fund, which probably will replace, we have that major project going right now, sewer replacement, which I believe Michael's going to talk about later. So that will replenish what we need for that project. So I'm not going to ask for approval of the budget now. I'm sorry, one last thing on this budget. And Michael's going to discuss the salary resolution here in a minute. But there are no raises built into this. But next year is kind of a unique year because we have 27 payroll as opposed to the usual 26. So all the hourly people are going to make it a minimum of 80 hours more next year. So when you look at that salary and wages line, that's why it's up that $200,000. It's not raises, it's just the additional payment that we're going to have to make on the salary and wages next year. So I'll answer any questions if you have any. And like I said, I'm not asking for approval tonight. I thought I'd give you a month and you could take a look at it. Once again, if you have questions, you can email me or call me. And I am putting together some detail behind some of these numbers, the larger ones. I did 4 or 5 of them today. So next month, if you have questions, I'll back up for you. So if anybody has any questions, I'll field them.
Oh, that was a good job, Bill.
That was a good job. And then the next thing I had, which Michael has reviewed and updated certain parts of it, is the salary resolution for next year. And like I said, there's actually 27 pays. So what that means is all the salary people, I believe we have 11 of them, their bi-weekly pay is going to go down because the annual amount stays the same. So if there's 27 pays as opposed to 26. And then the other thing I did was we moved the GIS coordinator out of the IT department and moved that position up into the engineering area underneath the operations manager, Steve Stanford. So,
Just joined the conference.
So that's all I have, Michael.
Thank you, Scott.
You want to talk about the seat?
Yeah, I just wanted, I think the board members are probably aware that all the salaried staff are going to be taking about a 4% pay cut on their take-home pay for every 2 weeks. But there are going to be, you will be receiving an extra check during the year. So I don't know how the board members feel about that. There was a lot of discussion at the city hall and the city level overall. And I talking with Mr. Kistler, he explained to me that it was actually a 5-4 vote at of the city council members to vote against having the pay stay the same for the salaried people. So just wanted you guys to keep that in mind, that if you have any opinions on that or anything, we could talk about it, or we could talk about it at the next meeting. So
Just joined the conference.
is there any comments about that part right now before I go any further?
So I take it that there's no more freeze on anything, on hiring or nothing.
We have never had a freeze on hiring at the wastewater treatment facility for the operating fund. We did need to receive approval from the mayor to hire people for the refuse department, and when I talked to him about that, he was fine with me hiring whatever we felt we needed to get the job done, as long as we were doing okay in our budget, which I believe we are doing actually pretty good. I was just looking at that, so.
Awesome.
Is there any, before I go forward on some of these things in the salary resolution, was there any comment about the salary reduction in biweekly pay? Okay. CDL certificate, I'm just going to go over some of the changes. I have them in red. CDL certification, this is one of the things that we would like to get implemented as a change to the salary resolution this year. Basically, any employees whose job does not require them to have a Class B minimum CDL, which is anyone that works in the refuse department or anyone in the collections department, in order to work in that position, you have to have a Class B CDL. I'm sure you guys remember, we also have the refuse driver loader in training and the collection maintenance worker in training for some of the people that didn't have CDLs. We've hired them in and we've given them time to get their CDLs. But any other department in the district that doesn't have a CDL, we would like to pay them 30 cents an hour for holding a CDL, because it becomes valuable for us, for Class B CDL, it becomes valuable for us to have those employees. One person that comes to mind is our refuse inspector, who is relatively new, been on the job maybe close to a year or maybe 9 months, and he has gone on his own initiative to get the Class B CDL, and it's very valuable to us because he can jump in a truck and drive a truck when we need him to do some work like that. So we'd like to offer an extra 30 cents an hour pay for that position, for that, and anyone that does that. And then we also have item on my.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Mike, what job do those guys with the CDL hold? I mean, what does that fall under?
The two jobs that require a CDL to have the job is the driver loaders for the refuse department, so they can drive the refuse trucks, and then also the collection maintenance guys have to have CDLs, because we have those big vac trucks that require CDLs to drive those, Class B, with Class B CDLs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And when they make in this, I see the amount they're making, and you saying just 30 cents?
Well, what I'm saying is, to have that job, which is on the salary resolution, which is on page 1.
Right, I understand that, Mike. I understand that, Mike. But I was just asking, is that all you're asking for them guys is 30 cents?
No, I'm not asking anything for those guys, because it's a requirement of their job to actually have the Class B CDL. It always has been since I've worked here, since, I think it's even before I was here. It's a requirement to have the CDL, and those guys are paid $18 an hour. They have to have that.
Okay.
They have to have that CDL in order to be qualified for the job.
Okay.
But if anyone else has a job, like the refuse inspector, I use that as an example, some of our maintenance workers, they're not required to have a CDL, but if they go out and get the CDL, then we would like to honor that with an extra 30 cents an hour pay.
Okay, and that's what I was talking about.
And then-
just saying 30 cents.
Extra an hour, 30 cents an hour. And then anyone that gets a Class A, or has a Class A or gets a Class A CDL, which is a higher classification than a B, we would like to offer another 30 cents an hour for anyone that has a Class A CDL. And as you guys know, we recently purchased a semi-trailer. Class A is to haul a trailer, and you have to have a Class A. And we have that semi-trailer and the semi-cab for hauling the sludge. And we do have some men in the collections department, 3 or 4 of them that have a Class A. So we would like to offer them an extra 30 cents an hour for having the Class A CDL, and anyone else that would want to get a Class A would get an extra 30 cents an hour.
So that would be 60 cents then.
If you work in the refuse or maintenance department and you got your Class A, you already had your Class B, you have to have that to have the job, you get an extra 30 cents. If you didn't work in either one of those departments and got your Class A, then you would get 30 cents, you would get 60 cents extra. Okay? And then in section 10, this is something that we've actually been doing for a long, long time at the sanitary district, probably way before I was ever here, but we can't find anywhere in writing where this is actually in writing for us to do. So I just want to put this in the salary resolution that we actually pay the extra fee for the person that gets a Class B or Class A CDL for their driver's license fee. I think it's like $35 for a CDL license, and a regular driver's license is like $17, so we would pay the extra $18. Our men that work in the refuse in the collections department, they have to have a tanker endorsement because they drive those vac trucks and it has a tank on there. We would like to pay that. I think that's $9. And then we have medical exams. Anyone that has a CDL, there's different frequencies, but I think if you're in good standing, you have to go every 2 years for a medical exam, and we always pick up the cost on that. So I wanted to put that in writing. And then also, when someone goes to do their field test and the driving test, we've been paying some people, when the people pass, we've been paying them for that, so we want to put that in writing up to a maximum of $250. And that's about right. It seems about $100 to do the test, and if you rent the truck, it's another maybe $125 to $150 or so. So that's something that I wanted to add to the salary resolution, so we have that in the resolution, so there's no disagreement about what we're paying or what we are supposed to pay or what we're paying. So I think that Scott, are you saying that you wanted to let them look this over and we'd ask for approval for the salary resolution at the next board meeting?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, so they have some time to look at it. And, it's pretty much the basis for the budget, too. So I was thinking we could ask for approval of both of those at the next meeting.
Is that all right with you, Mr. Mitchell?
Sure. Is there any reason why yeah, that'll be fine. Sure, that'll be fine.
This is Jeff. I have a couple of comments and maybe a question or two. Training and education is good, so benefiting the employees for advancing themselves to help the sanitary district is good, in my humble opinion. I'm wondering about this section 10, and I haven't read this thing in great detail, but it says all employees holding a CDL, and then it says, or attempting to obtain, receive benefit. And I didn't go through all the itemized benefits, but is that the language you want there, or just simply obtaining, trying to obtain?
Well, the reason I use the words attempting to obtain is because when you go to take the test on item D, okay, we'll pay if you successfully pass the test. I mean, I guess, you know, I don't know, I asked Mr. Meyer about this wording, and I'm not sure if that's a word he put in there, or I put in there, I don't remember, but he did review it and thought it was proper wording, so.
So I'm just seeing anybody that makes the attempt would be eligible for some.
Well, if you-
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't gone through it.
All right, well, let's break it down, Jeff. The only way you can get paid on item A is to actually pass the test and get your CDL license, so that would be it. And then item B, again, the only way you can get paid is if you get the tanker endorsement, so there's no fee for taking the test. It's free, but their tanker endorsement, once you get it, to get it on your license, I think is $9 extra or something like that. And that, so once you got it, and then medical exams, I guess that one really wouldn't affect anybody that's attempting, because they wouldn't need to go to a medical exam, only if you hold the license. And then item D, reimbursement for any expense associated with an employee who's successfully passing the field and/or driving test, including the truck rental. So, you know, I don't know.
Hey, Mike, I heard you say $9 extra. Is that the payment for the test, or $9 extra per hour?
No, when you get the tanker, when you have a CDL license, you can get different endorsements on there. One of them is a tanker endorsement, which is required for us for driving our vac trucks, and it costs $9 to get the tanker endorsement.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So whatever, Jeff, we could take out the word attempting. That's we'll look at that, okay? And we'll make a decision.
No, yeah, I wasn't. I was just looking at it. The other thing I'm looking at, it says there will be no payment or reimbursement of fees for attending the CDL course. I mean, is there a reason we wouldn't cover that? Are those expensive, or how would we pay for those?
We've never paid for that in the past, and they're about somewhere between, you know, $1,500 and $2,000 to go to these training courses. And, you know, not everybody, I don't know, I only know one guy that's ever gone to the training, or that's going to the training courses. Everybody else just normally studies on their own, and, or, you know, yeah, get some work help, you know, here and there, studies on their own, doesn't really go to a class. We do have one guy in the refuse department who's either started going, he's gonna be going every Saturday, or he's started recently or going to be starting. And I just wanted to make it clear that we weren't gonna pay for anyone to go to the training courses.
Well, I'm sure this is all in your capable hands, Michael, but, I mean, you know me, training and education is good.
Well, I'm all for training and education. I'm all for it, yeah, but, I mean, it's something.
Hey, Jeff, this is Scott. The other thing we have 2 or 3 guys, one guy in collection that's really good helping the other people. You know, he helps them out and helps train them. So we got a lot of internal training that, you know, is available. So I just wanted that.
I'm sure you guys are on top of it. I wouldn't be opposed to popping $1,500 if we need guys with CDLs.
Yeah.
Pop the $1,500. Let's get them trained and get them up to speed. That's just me. And like you said, we have another couple of weeks to look at this and think it through and talk it. But those were just off the top of my head. And then the last thing was this, the question I have is this, the 4%. What was that? Everybody was getting a 4% reduction on there. I'm sorry, I have to ask the question. My battery on my phone died, and I had to call in on another phone. So I missed the part where there's this 4% deal.
Currently, our overall, anyone that's salaried employee, their annual salary is divided by 26 paychecks. Okay? So next year there's going to be 27 paychecks instead of 26 paychecks. And so if you take 1 divided by 26, it's 3.8%. So it's about a 4% reduction in your take-home pay, in your gross pay that you're going to be getting each paycheck next year. And this has been something that, we knew was coming for quite a while. I know when I worked for the state of Indiana for many of years, they did not pay you an annual salary, they paid you a biweekly salary. So it didn't matter how many pay periods were in the year, you got paid the same amount on your biweekly check every year. So now all of the salaried people, including probably you, Jeff, are going to be seeing a 4%, approximately 3.8 or so percent pay reduction in their gross pay on their paycheck each month. So, each 2 weeks. So it's going to be a little harder to make.
We need to get that changed.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up. Now, the city council voted 5-4 to have the 4% reduction in everybody's biweekly pay for the city workers. So we normally follow what the city does, but obviously you're your own board. I believe you could change that if you wanted to, but that's just something I wanted to throw out there. At the end of the day, if you increase it, then everybody's going to make, that much more money, just like for the year. But the hourly people are going to make that much more money, as Scott Kistler explained, because they're going to have an extra paycheck this year too. So it's just something to think about. I'm personally, it's going to be hard to make it through with the reduction, 4% reduction. But at the same time, you're going to, instead of getting, there'll be 3 months in the year, you'll actually get 3 paychecks. I think it's January, July, and December, where normally it's usually 2 months a year. You get that third paycheck. So but it cuts both ways. So that's why I wanted to throw it out there, just so you guys were aware of it.
Actually, okay.
And going back, Jeff, if I could, going back to your other comment about the CDL training, the water department does offer something along these lines where they actually pay for the men to go to the training, or men or women go to the training course, and if they pass, then they have to sign an agreement or something that they'll work for this water department for at least like 3 more years or something, and if they leave early, then it's prorated, taken out of their pay or something along those lines. We could work on some language like that if the board would like us to. One concern I have about the training is how we would implement this training, because like right now we've got probably 7 guys or 8 guys that are in training where they don't have their CDL and they need to get it. And if they were all going to be going to training for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, I don't know how we'd get the job done over here without them being here, especially in the refuse department. So, but that is something that I just wanted to throw out. I'm not adverse to it. I agree with the training, but I was just trying to mirror what we have in our what we've been doing over the course of the years, and I've found out recently that I can't find it written down anywhere. Okay?
I see. Yeah,
If the board members,
I guess.
do the board members want to?
On my.
Hang on a second, I gotta close the door. We're getting an alarm going off about a chemical emergency, so hopefully the guys are taking care of it. I was just going to ask, overall, I know what you expressed your opinion. Do the other board members feel the same way as Jeff, that they'd like to see us try to implement some kind of a training program for CDL drivers?
Well, what would be easy for you, Mike?
Well,
I mean, for the company, for the company, sanitation.
it's always easier to do. It's usually easier to do nothing, but I have no problem with it. I'm all for it. If the board members would like to see the training, it's fine. Like I said.
Well, Mike, this is Tim Smith. The question on it is that the way your process has been working now, it sounds like it's been working. So, I guess my question is, do you feel we need to implement the training, or do you feel the process right now is working okay?
Okay, off the top of my head, I could say it's working okay, but it could definitely be working better. I've got like I said, 7 or 8 men that are in this in-training program, and I've had a few of them in this in-training program. I've told them they had to get their CDLs within a year, and I bet you I have 3 or 4 of them that haven't got their CDL within a year. We're going to be hiring 2 new guys to the refuse department here. They're supposed to start, I think, on the 24th, and I'm going to make them sign some kind of an agreement, written agreement. The other men, I just told them when you're hired in, this is a requirement. So, I mean, I don't know that it would be a bad thing to explore. I really don't, Mr. Smith. So.
Okay, well then I would support you exploring it, Mike. You're the expert, and if we need these guys to have the right training, I'm with Jeff. I think, you need to make sure that they get the correct training, because we certainly don't want $2,500 is not worth an accident, as Dan McCoy can sure chime in here on.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the other thing is what happens to us a lot of times, like with the refuse department especially, when we go to work on a Saturday, okay? The guys that have the CDLs don't want to work overtime. And the guys that don't have the CDLs, they want to work overtime, but then we don't have anyone that drive the truck. I should say nobody, but we have 1 or 2 guys that can drive instead of 5 or 6 like we need. So it would help us to have more guys with CDLs, and I've been pushing these guys more and more lately. But maybe if we offered a training program that we were paying the bill for, maybe they'd get their CDLs and we'd be in better shape. On one hand, some of these guys are really good workers. I mean, really good workers. And, if they want to work for $2 an hour less, because that's what it comes down to, it's a little over $2 an hour, right around $2 an hour less, I don't really mind it, because they're working good and we're not paying as much, and, they're not crying to me about getting their CDL. So on one hand, it's okay, but on the other hand, we need them to have their CDLs, and, a more educated and trained workforce is better for everybody. So let me look in some of the costs, and I'll, even if we don't get it approved at the December meeting, we could always go back and approve it in January or February. So let me do some research, and we'll see where we stand on that by the time our next board meeting comes around, okay?
Well, I would say this as a final comment. I know that when I need to go get training for the corporation or the city, either the city or the corporation pays for that training. I don't pay that out of pocket. That's a disincentive, if you ask me personally.
Hey, Jeff, I agree, but the city didn't pay for you to go to college for 4 years to get your professional engineer license either. You know what I mean? I mean, to be a professional engineer and work for the city as a city engineer, you have to have a PE license, and that's the same thing about these jobs. To have these jobs, you had to have a CDL. But what happened to us is when we put it out there for CDL drivers saying it's a requirement, we get no applications at anybody that has a CDL. So that's why we came up with the CDL driver, in training, or the loader driver maintenance and training. So, it's it cuts both ways a little bit. And I think let's just look into it. We'll see what we come up with, okay?
Yeah, that's good. That sounds good. Mm-hmm.
Just a comment, the medical emergency was a false positive.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mueller-Rad.
You're welcome.
Not to be confused with the false positive COVID test, right? Okay, so I just want to make sure, Gary Mitchell and the rest of the board members, all of you okay postponing voting on the operating budget and the salary resolution until our next meeting?
Yes, we're fine.
Okay.
I am. Yes, I am. President, this is Holt. I have a couple other comments before we, move on beyond anyone's final comments, if I may.
Sure, Holt.
Okay. This question is probably and should probably be for Mr. Kistner and Mr. Meyer. With regards to the monthly 4% decrease, with the exception of the months of January, July, and December, this is happening only because of the calendar days of the way that they fall. Correct?
Yeah,
Right. Because of the way the weekends fall during the 2021, there are 27 two-week periods where usually there's only 26. So the hourly people, there's only 2,000, roughly 2,080 hours in a year. whether it's 27 pay periods or 26 or whatever. So the hourly rate people get paid because of this 2-week span instead of getting paid every day. Yes, they will, have another paycheck, whereas the next year they won't.
No, excuse me, that's not really my question as far as the hourly. I was concerned for our salary employees, that apparently I believe there are 11 of them, and they will be affected on a monthly basis. Is there any option that, the board members outside of being the salary employees, outside of, Mr. Wright, but is there any other options that we can pursue? And what was the exact 5-4 vote? There's two questions here. Are there options, and if so, what are they? Can we adjust it so the monthly outflow, of course, is the same, but we do it as 26 instead of 27? That's the first question. Is there an option? And if so, what exactly was voted for and against at the council?
Well, a little more. The overriding principle was that no one was to get a raise this year, meaning for 2021. Okay? So, in order to implement that principle, obviously, if the salary people are supposed to be getting an annual salary, I'm telling you what the positions were. And therefore, an annual salary means how much you get paid in a year. And if it's $100,000, and whether it gets paid in 26 payments or 27 payments, it's still $100,000 you get paid during that calendar year.
Yeah.
Okay? That was a position taken by the majority to avoid their appearance not appearance, it would be an actual raise for salary people. Because the salary people, if they got 27 times, the higher amount, not the 4% reduced amount, would end up getting more, one more payment during the year. And so, in effect, their salary for that year would go up by the 3.8% or whatever it is. So, that was
I understand that, and thank you for the explanation, so as well everyone could understand it, probably to a little bit better, greater extent, maybe in a greater extent. My question was that the monthly outflow, in the tone of Mr. Cusson's voice and Mr. Wright's voice, was that, a 3.8% effect, even if it was only 9 months out of the year, where they weren't getting the extra, salary because of the extra paycheck. Was there anything that we could do to balance that and not give any raises of sorts, but to make it for our salary employees that they stay on a 26, I mean, I know the calendar is in effect affecting all of this, but I did hold this concern. So, yes, please.
Yeah,
do you understand my question?
Yeah.
Yeah, and technically, legally, and not accounting, but legally, you could just have, instead of getting paid every 2 weeks, get paid once a month, and then divide your salary by 12, and that's what you would get. Other than that, Scott can speak to this, but I don't believe our accounting system for paying wages is capable of allowing Scott, for instance, to adjust every paycheck on a salaried individual that you would have to do to make all the months even.
Well, in the world I come from, the city has one payroll, and it pays both hourly and salary. The companies I've worked for have two different payrolls, one for the salary people and one for the hourly people. So to Mr. Meyer's comment, we could pay everybody the 15th and 30th of every month salary, but that would mean the city would have to run 2 separate payrolls. And I think there's a little resistance to do that, which I don't really understand. But the other point I'd like to make, is there's another wrinkle to this whole discussion that's been made, and technically 2020 would have been the year of 27 pays, because January 1st falls on a Friday, which is a payday. Historically, the city has paid before the holiday. So, like, people would have been paid on Wednesday. So, 2020, there would have been 27 pays. And next year, there would have been 26 if they would have done what they historically did. But what happened was, when they did the 2020 budget last year, no one caught the fact, and so it wasn't built into the budget for 2020. So there was no way they could make that 27th payment in 2020 because it wasn't built into the budget. So,
early art salary.
Yep. So they kind of
for the city, it's about a $750,000.
Right. Yeah, and for us, just so the board knows, if we left everybody at the 26 pay rate, it would cost roughly to the district $30,000 in our budget for next year. So it's not really that big of it's $30,000. That's still a big enough number, but it's not like the $750 the city would have had to incur that wasn't budgeted. So
the cities is so high because it included the hourly.
Yeah,
district
exactly.
Would only be the salary. And by the way, I agree. The increase for salaries getting the same, 26 pay 27 times would be $30,000.
For us.
Yes.
So yeah, it's roughly about 30. So
Thank you for those.
We need to keep in mind that the sanitary district is an executive department of the city and not a separate corporation, and that in the past, historically, it has always, in order to avoid various issues, followed the city's lead in reference to what it does with raises.
Yeah, Mike said that.
Okay, and you guys, wonderful job on explaining that. I just wanted to unpeel it a little bit more so we could see what was possible. And really, I was hoping this information, is better used for Mr. Smith and our president, to where, because it really doesn't affect us directly. And that's really what I was hoping that. Tim, do you have any additional comments, or Gary?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
I would like to, not pass this tonight, though. I'd like to think about it and bring it up next board meeting, please.
Okay. Sounds good. Scott, you're still doing your thing now, aren't you, Scott? You're still in the middle.
I'm pretty much done if there's no other questions. That's pretty much my gig.
Gentlemen,
But you can't leave.
Gentlemen, I did have one other thing that actually I wrote a note to make sure that I talked about later on in my, when I go through the projects, but I think it might just be best to just bring it up now because it fits in with the salary resolution. We've got several hourly employees, a few hourly employees at least, maybe several, who have not really been able to take their vacation time this year because they're just swamped working, especially in the IT department, and they've asked me to see if you would approve them being able to carry over a couple weeks of their vacation that they couldn't really fit in this year because they're too busy till next year. So I may also add that to the salary resolution, but I just wanted to give you, I forgot to put it in there before I passed it out. Dawned on me last night. I promised a couple people that I would bring it up. So think about that too. I think it would be a good thing to allow them to carry over a couple weeks vacation to next year. So I just wanted to mention that, okay?
Mr. Cuss, I believe you did mention it, a board meeting or two ago that, you introduced that.
Okay, you're right, I did. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
but you were supposed to call me and remind me to write it in the writing, in the resolution, but you never did that, so it's your fault.
You said you would try to remember.
All right, I said I'd try to remember. I remembered, but I remembered too late.
Yes.
So, okay, very good. Thank you for listening. Do you want me to go on then with the projects, Gary?
Yes, sir, go ahead with the update, sir.
Okay, the Cheney Run stormwater project as pretty much updated. It's like I said before, it's pretty much final substantial completion on that project. We do have one issue there that we need to talk about a little bit. Maybe I mentioned this also, I don't remember, but the project has a 5-year maintenance bond required, not maintenance bond, excuse me, a 5-year maintenance is part of the contract. And the contractor had talked to us about issuing a bond to cover those costs. I don't know if I brought this up at a previous board meeting. Did I bring this up at the last board meeting? Does anyone remember?
I know we had talking about that a long time ago, but I don't remember.
Okay, well, what I was, we probably could get it approved next month, but there's pros and cons each way. We talked with our Sobel grant people, our Sustain Our Great Lakes grant, and they weren't really too keen on the idea of the maintenance bond for the grant, but I still think it might be potentially in our best interest to move that way. So I was going to ask the board if they would give the approval to myself with the consultation of Mr. Meyer, if we were wanting to go that route to a bond to move in that direction and then have everything approved later by the board.
And that's for a 5-year maintenance agreement?
Yeah, the thought is to pay everything now and then just have a bond that would cover the costs of this 5-year, if they don't do the work that they're supposed to do. A lot of it's some tree planting if the plants don't grow or wetland plants don't grow. So I don't know. Mr. Meyer, do you have any comments on that? Do you think that we could just wait till next board meeting to have something passed? Or do you think it'd be good for them to give us our approval to move forward? Or
No, I think it'd be, one way or the other, we can look at it. So I don't think that there's a need to vote on it at this point.
Okay.
But from my perspective, legally speaking and financially, we want to make sure that we don't bite the hand that feeds us. So whatever the grant folks are going to require, I think we should comply. But if they're willing to go along with the bond in lieu of, withholding retainage, from a legal perspective, I don't see any issue with that.
Now, Mike, I got a question. Why don't we do anything like that with the streets? I mean,
I guess we could, but but this is a little bit different because with this project, there's going to be a certain number of plants. It really is about the plants that are going to die off. So if you plant 46,000 plants and 2,000 of them die off, then they need to maintain by planting 2,000 more plants. So.
Man, it seems like them guys come in every year to do our streets over. We need to work on them guys when they do the streets, though. They don't do too good of a job, I tell you. And especially in some neighborhoods better than others, where they take care of the streets.
But Mr. Meyer, you just think we could wait until the next board meeting? You don't think there's a need to vote on anything now?
Correct.
Okay. All right, well,
I would remind the president that the sanitary district doesn't do the streets, but he can talk to Jeff about it.
No, when they do our projects, we do the streets. It includes the streets.
Oh.
when they're doing our projects here.
Sometimes it does, sometimes.
Am I right or wrong, Mike? I mean,
Sometimes there's some street work that's done. You know, we have had a couple projects where we've pretty much reconstructed the entire street, and then we have other projects where we just do a patch. You know, where we put the sewer line and just do a patch.
And you look up, and you end up looking like they need to come back the very next year.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know.
Okay, so we've got these two invoices. These are for the fence. You might remember we had a contract for the fence for $115,000, $115,750, and there's two invoices. The fence is up. The fence is really nice. It looks good. GAF is really happy with it, and we also inspected it and we found it to be really good. So these two invoices are here. If we could get approval of invoice number 3765 from Milestone Fence Company for $104,175.
Can we get a motion?
Yeah, this is, I'll make that, that we paid, Milestone Fence LLC, $104,175 on invoice number 3765. I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
This is Jeff, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And
No
then,
opposed, Mike.
okay, very good. And then there's another invoice, number 3766, for $11,575. So I'd like to have a motion to have that approved and paid.
We get a motion. Do we get a second?
This is Holt, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed.
And just a reminder for the board members, we will get reimbursed this money either through the grant or through the redevelopment commission. Okay, the next one is the Carwick dump site. The construction is substantially complete. There's a small punch list item that includes the removal of the temporary fence and continuing to monitor the grass and trees. We have a substantial completion certification in the packet, and you're going to forward that on to Woodruff and Sons. So that's in your packet, certificate of substantial completion. This has been reviewed by myself and Mr. Stanford, along with our engineer, Brian DeVerona from Weaver Consulting Group, and I would like to ask for approval of the substantial certificate of substantial completion for the Carwick dump site project.
Do we get a motion?
Go ahead, Jim.
Hold on, this is Jim Meyer.
Oh, okay.
The version I have was not signed by the contractor.
No, it's not
We
signed.
have a version that's signed by the contractor.
No, we don't have that yet. Do you want to wait for that, or
Well, you have, I mean, they should have signed it before the engineer signed it, but anyway.
Michael, this is Steve.
I mean, you can pass it, but conditioned on the engineer, I mean, the contractor signing it.
okay. Steve Stanford had a comment. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, the contractor signed it. Apparently, maybe Brian didn't send it to you, he only sent it to me.
Okay, so I guess the contractor has signed it, according to Steve Stanford.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I got it, Michael.
What about the
As
rest
long
of
as
the
we got
form?
something that the contractor signed that the board can sign.
There's other blanks on the form too. Contract for, contract date. Are those necessary at all?
I would think they should be filled in.
So Mike,
I want to, can I get a proper form? That's what I would like. I want one filled out the proper way.
I don't disagree. I I don't know if those are required to be filled in, you know, I mean, the contractor has got Woodruff and Sons, the contract for would be for the Carwick Nature Park corrective action, and then the contract date, we could go back and find the date.
So what would you floor this to the next meeting?
I think we could just approve it and we could fill that stuff in and we could send it to Jeff and make sure he's happy with it if you guys are okay with that.
Well, can we get a motion?
Okay, we'll set it for the next meeting.
Mike, look like the guys want to do it to the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine with me. It's no big deal. I was just trying to knock something off our plate, that's all.
Okay. All right. Do we have any more?
No, that's it for the Carwick. Cheney Run amenities, we have the final plans and specifications. I think they've been reviewed by everyone. I know, Jeff, you looked at those. Remember, you made the comments about the needing to have the ADA requirements in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to have a motion to accept the final plans and specifications for the Cheney Run Carwick amenities?
Mike, I would be happy to make that motion. I think it's wonderful, and you guys have done a great job with that.
Mm-hmm. So this is Jeff. I would second that motion. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next thing we've got is a project update on the, I'm gonna do both items 9D and 9E first with the project updates, then we'll come back to the invoices. The Southgate Stormwater has been completed, except with the exception of a couple punch list items, closeout documents. Final payment is contingent upon D&M completing 2 remaining work items on the punch list and delivering as-built drawings by November 25th. They did try to send us a final completion certificate, but we did not get it in time. So we're going to have that on the board meeting for next month to approve the final acceptance of the project for the Southgate Neighborhood Stormwater Improvement Project. The North End Capacity Study, they've been analyzing synthetic storms and they completed the hydraulic model. They're just shy of providing preliminary insights regarding the analysis results in the terms of capacity restrictions, etc. in the system. You would have those preliminary results to you by the next meeting, but that did not get done, so they'll probably have those preliminary results to us in the next week or two and ready for the next board meeting. So that's the project updates for those 2 projects. We've got a Village Road, we've got a invoice number 201820-CN-09 for a total of $6,203.07. This has been reviewed by staff and verification of services form has been signed off on, and I'd ask the board to approve this for Haas and Associates for $6,203.07.
This is Holt. I'll make that motion.
Second. Can we get a second? This is Jeff. I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. No opposed, Mike.
And then the North End study, we've got invoice from Haas and Associates number 2019-254-07 for the amount of $9,921.20. This has also been reviewed by staff and the verification of services form has been signed off by myself, and I would ask the board to approve this invoice.
Can we get a motion?
Yeah, this is Holt. I'll make that motion.
Jeff will second. All in favor? Aye. No opposed.
Okay, Long Beach Sewer Project, the only update we have there is that the well, I guess it's not the IDEM, it's the Indiana Finance Authority State Revolving Fund Loan Program. They have completed their environmental assessment and findings of no significant impacts to the environment, which is not too surprising since it's in an urban area. And their report was issued on November 10th, 2020, and there is a 30-day public comment period where the public can make comments on their environmental assessment and findings of no impacts. That's the only update there. I don't know if there's any questions. The next thing we have is this white ditch cleaning project. We talked at the last board meeting, the low quote was for $178,303. We put this project out for quotes. We didn't put it out for bids because we did not think it would be over $150,000. And we've talked with the low quoter, which was D&M Excavating, about ways to do the project at a lower reduced cost, and really haven't come back with anything concrete. The only thing he said was, if you want to change the scope of the project and have less work, then maybe they could cut the cost down. So at this point in time, I really don't know what else to do. That's a lot of money to clean a little portion of a ditch. I think we'd be in the best position to look at putting out another request for quotes, maybe for a reduced scope. And I'd like to get the board's approval to put that out, and then maybe we could have those quotes come in at our next board meeting.
And that was D&M said lessen the scope, huh?
Yeah, they were the low quoter. The quotes, if you remember, they all came in pretty close. They were all right around $180,000. But I asked D&M, since they were the low quoter, if there's any way that they could reduce the cost down, try to, literally try to get it down $50,000-$60,000 more dollars, because, we don't really have $178,000 in our stormwater budget to do this work. And, so anyways, I think we'd be...
wouldn't work with it, huh?
Well, I asked him a long time ago, literally, and I kept calling, and finally he came back with an email, I think the other day, after several attempts to try to get some information, and he basically said, well, if you want to change the scope of the project, we might be able to reduce the cost. So I think we'd be in our best interest to try to see if we can reduce the scope and put it out for a requote. So I'd like to get board approval to do that, if you don't mind.
Wait a minute, Mike.
I mean, all the work we gave them, and they wasn't willing to adjust 20 grand.
I'm just telling you what he said, Gary.
Wow.
Sometimes it's, he's got to pay his guys to do their job too, and everything that we were requiring. We were requiring a lot of tree removal and a lot of work to get this done. We didn't think it would be this much, but all the other companies
Is there any benefit? Would there be any benefit to talking to the county? I know they do a lot of ditch cleaning. They get theirs at significantly lower cost than what we're looking at here.
I don't think it would hurt at all, Jeff. I think that would be a good idea. Maybe there's some other contractors.
Get a hold of the county surveyor, and see how they're doing it.
Maybe we could.
I'm surprised. With D&M, though, I'm surprised.
Maybe we could find some other contractors. We didn't put this out for bids. We just sent it to some of the local companies that we thought would be interested in the project. Maybe there's some other contractors out there that we didn't send this to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So can we get do you guys want me to put it out? Can we get the blessing to put this out for requotes?
Well, who were you suggesting, Jeff?
Well, I know the county does a significant amount of legal drain cleaning and drain cleaning overall, and they have a couple of guys that come in and they cut the trees and the stumps and pull, get the weeds out and do the dredging and all of that. And I'm just suggesting maybe it's worth a phone call to ask the county surveyor, can you give us their names and numbers, and when Michael puts this out again, maybe we include them on the list.
And don't lessen the scope, Mike. Keep the scope the same. See what happens.
Well, maybe we could do a couple different parts. We could maybe have a quote for the same scope and maybe a quote for a lesser scope too. So
that might save you a lot of time, Michael.
Yep.
And get things
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that then. The Strebo Pond update. They hit the edges of the high Phragmites with the ATV sprayers to avoid overspray on the prairie, and then the Marsh Master did the large swaths of the interior parts of the pond. They started on the south end of the south pond and moved clockwise, then repeated the same from the north pond. Everything should start to respond around the same time. It was all done on the same day. That was an email note from this Michael Schuster from October 6th. One drawback to this method of / timing of the treatment is often the plant's response is not seen before, not seen right away. Overall, this is ideal treatment. This is ideal for treatment because it means the herbicide is being drawn down directly into the roots at the same time, and the plant moves on its own resources naturally into them, leading to a high mortality. Mortality is then observable the following spring. So basically they're saying that they got the weed herbicide on the Phragmites and that we should see really good results in the spring. So that's the project update on that Strebo Pond restoration project. The US Highway 421 and 300 North project. We do nothing that they put this out for bids, even though we had reviewed the plans and specifications, worked with the county and gone to several meetings with the county about the fact that they wanted to install these sewers. I found out about the project because a contractor that was putting in a bid called me about a couple questions about the project, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know it was out for bid. So on November 12th, I sent an email to the county engineer, Jerry Sullivan, and the economic development director, Matt Reardon, and asked them for copies of the bid package and all the addendums, which they did send to us really very quickly, actually the very next day. And then also I asked them to provide a copy of the bid tabulation, which they did, and I put that in your packet. And this writing is really, really small, so I don't know how well I can see it, but I believe that Grimmer Construction was the low bidder at $4,222,742. And you can see the rest of the prices there, or the rest of the costs. I think H&G was the next lowest quoter at like 4.4 million, 4.4 million, 4.5 million, so, okay. Just wanted to tell you that. I don't know when and if they're gonna move forward with the construction on that. We may need to issue a construction permit, or they may just try to get it through the state of Indiana. Either way is fine with us. Pine Tree Court sewer extension project update. I don't have anything written on that, just verbally I want to tell you that Gatlin Plumbing was the contractor, and they started working on Monday, and these guys are really good. They send us an update every day of what they got done. I really appreciate an email note every single day what kind of work they got done, at least they have so far. It's very impressive working with them so far. And I also put in the packet here a letter to Mr. Gary Mitchell, our board president. We issued the construction permit on the 16th of November. As a copy of that, we issued the permit on the 14th of November, and this is a copy of the permit that we send to ourselves so that we actually have the approval to install this sewer. So I don't know if there's any questions about any of that stuff. Is there any questions about any of that stuff?
No.
Okay, energy savings project. We had another really good month of savings. We had savings of $9,028 last month. I think again this goes to our commitment to finding every possible way we can to save energy. Last month we saved $8,000. This month we saved $9,000. So that's $17,800, $17,900 just about that we've saved on energy in the last 2 months. So that's pretty good. I wanted to reiterate that we still are not satisfied, even though we are saving this. We're not saving what we should be saving, really not even close. And we have set the our argument with the contract that we have with ESG is set for mediation, and I believe the first round of mediation or whatever has been moved to the week of January 11th, and Mr. Meyer and Ryan Byers and myself have committed to getting together and going over a few things, although really it's pretty basic situation. You know, we're saying that we should be saving this much energy, and we're not really seeing those savings, and that there's some work that should have been done in the beginning to come up with the existing conditions, and that work was really not done properly. So we think it's rather straightforward. So hopefully we will have a good outcome from the mediation, which is now again scheduled for the middle of January. This is the blue swag report is in your packet. We still have not really had any face-to-face meetings or any virtual meetings for a while, so I don't know how great this update is. I'm also a little bit confused about the month of the report. So this is the report for October. I don't know if last month's had October or had September's, but I don't really have anything specific to talk about there on that. The next thing on the agenda is some of these updates for the wastewater treatment plant. I'm just going to verbally tell you that the turbidity meter is in and it's working fine. It's giving us really good results that we can see on our Wonderware InTouch screen. Excellent little addition. The rotary actuators for post aeration and the bubbler channels. Actually, literally, right when the meeting was starting, I was on the phone 20 minutes to 4 with the consultant that we hired out of Fort Wayne. We worked with him yesterday, and we got the bubbler channel actuator hooked up, and he was telling me that it's actually starting to control the flow right where we want it to be controlled at 650 cubic feet a minute. So that part of the project seems to be done. The post aeration actuator, we've still got to run some wires from the post aeration dissolved oxygen meter to the actuator and hook that up, and then we can set in the controls on that PLC. So that needs to be done. The ultrasonic height sensors in the filter building, we have the wiring is ran from the ultrasonic height controller to the box where it needs to be hooked into the PLC unit, which is a programmable logic controller unit. And we did not have enough input cards, so we had to order another input card, and that was supposed to come in, I believe, today. I think it was supposed to come in today. I don't know if we did receive it or not, but if we did receive it, we should be able to get that put in to the mix rather quickly. It's probably about somewhere between a 15-minute and 30-minute job to put that into the unit, and then we just need to connect those wires to those input channels. So maybe within a couple hours we could have that done, and then that'll be reading correctly on our SCADA Wonderware system, which is a big problem for us, that it's not reading correctly because we keep getting a whole bunch of false alarms from this. Our old sensors don't work at all. We just get alarms all the time, which are false alarms. And then the Shambaugh & Sons, that contract that we have with them, I think I already explained all that stuff. Oh, they also helped us with the primary. We put a new ultrasonic height and flow meter in for our primary, and we want to connect that to our controls for our headworks. And he was able to find the program. No, we did not even have a copy of the program. This young man, Alex from Shambaugh, was able to make a copy of the program for us. So now we've got something that we haven't had for who knows how long, 10 or 12 years. And we have that now. And if anything were to go wrong, now we can backtrack that. And he also found where the input goes for this primary flow signal. And we ran the wires today and have it all but hooked up, and we're going to try to hook that up tomorrow. So that should be done also. So that's pretty exciting. Then item N is this longer note from Ben about the PLC and the SCADA control. He's making considerable progress. We're down to really like one alarm. I didn't have time to really highlight this note, but it's just going well. And if you want to read his note in more detail, you certainly can. And if there's any questions, I could try to answer them. So any questions about any of the stuff at the wastewater plant or the SCADA project?
No, sir.
It's going well. It's a lot of work. I mean, an enormous amount of work and effort, and we've been having weekly meetings, and we're making progress. Our goal is to have this completed by the end of the year. I don't know if we're going to make that or not, but that's still our goal. Double track project, there's an email note from Anthony Basil that explains where we stand on the GIS work for the double track project, and all the work that we've been doing on that. We're still waiting for the 100% plans. He wrote that note on November 16th. I believe they're very close, if not already submitted the 100% plans, and we will continue to review those. So is there any questions about the project update that Mr. Basil provided for double track?
Yeah, Mike, so would they have to do any more of that IT work under those tracks again?
I have to, this is something that actually Mr. Wright, our city engineer, deserves some good credit on. He was very adamant when he started reviewing these after he got on board, make sure that we've got some pathways underneath the track. So I think we're going to be putting in two conduit pipes in two different locations under the tracks in key locations where we could run fiber underneath there if we need to down the road. So he's complimented us several times on us doing a good job here, and I definitely want to compliment him on that for bringing that to everyone's attention and making sure that that got done. And then actually, Nickety wasn't really going to want to pay for it, and Anthony Basil wrote him a note and said, we think you should pay for it, and they came right back with, yes, no problem, we'll pay for it. So he did a nice job on that. So we were going to say the next time somebody doesn't want to come through, we were going to make him write the email, so. And so he did a nice job. The next thing I have on the list is a land application of biosolids. I'm happy to report that we, for the first time in 2.5, over about 2 years almost probably, we actually have our sludge lagoon empty. We were really never able to get it empty since the fall of 2018. And then 19, we had a really wet spring and couldn't get it empty. And then last fall didn't go well because the plants got in so late in 19 that the harvest was so late in the fall of 19, and we never were able to get rid of everything. And then this April, we tried our darndest to get everything out, but we couldn't do it. But this year in the fall, we were able to do it. And I just want to say, without any exaggeration at all, the semi-truck and the semi-trailer were the key to this. We hauled 73 loads with that semi-truck, and some quick math on my part with our hourly rate and the number of loads, because that would have been another 73 loads with the dump truck, we saved about $11,000 in when we went to haul in fuel and labor for that with the trailer. Just in one quarter land application, one month of land application, we saved $11,000. So that really worked out well, and I want to thank the board members again for sticking by us with our recommendations and allowing us to purchase those. And I really believe it's going to be cost effective. And I want to say, the other day I knew we had all the sludge hauled, and next thing you know, I see the semi truck going down the road, and I'm like, where's it going? I asked my men, and they said the street department's borrowing it to haul leaves. So it's in the mix for hauling leaves now too. So I think it's a very great purchase, and I want to thank everybody for that. I'll have the land application report. It's due to be sent to the state by the end of December, and I'll have that done here once I get all the lab results back and get that sent out in the middle of December. But okay.
Alrighty.
And so thanks again. And then the next thing we have is the monthly reports from everyone in your packet. You should have gotten those. And I just want to again reiterate that the BOD removal was 98.6%, suspended solids was 98.3%, ammonia 99.6%, phosphorus is 90% again, removal in the plant. Very good plant. The plant continues to run well. We're really kind of blessed in that regard. This is a good design facility.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Mike, I got a question to ask you. Where you been hiding Michaels at?
Jim Michaels?
Yeah.
He's got two jobs. He's handling the collection crew and he's handling the refuse for me both. He's been doing both.
I know I haven't been hearing him. I used to get a joy out of his reports.
Okay, well, his report's in here. We could go through his report.
Hey, you tell him Mitchell missed him.
All right, I'll tell him that Mr. Mitchell misses him, so.
Hey, Michael, this is Jeff.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to, if you would just pass on maybe a thank you to John Gorsica for filling in for me for a couple of weeks.
Sure.
On that York Street project.
Sure.
I just wanted to get that out in the public and let the board know that John took a couple extra steps to help me out, so.
Did he do a good job for you?
Yes, he did. Filled in real nice.
Okay, very good. I thought when we talked about it in the beginning that he'd be in some pretty capable hands there. It's right up his alley. So I will make sure that he knows, and it was nice of you to say that over the public airwaves.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we'll go to Jim Michael's collection report. It's in here. We did have one city plug last month in October. It was at 117 William Street. We received a call from the homeowner saying they had a sewage backup. We got out there and we found out the manhole was holding water. We jetted and the sewer went down. There was, the homeowner did the cleanup. There was only about 2 gallons of water in the basement, just a little bit around the floor drain, so it was nothing major. This is one of the things that, our guys are great on. I know the state of Indiana gets so impressed when we send these reports in because we get a call and we're there like in 5, 10, 15 minutes, and they don't normally see that around the rest of the state. So, and when you get there quickly, you don't have big problems like this usually. So, they had 43 work orders. They completed 43. They got 0 outstanding, and they're also fixing up the bridge at Streeple Pond. They've cleaned the bathrooms, vacuum out sanitary grease pits and stuff like that. So, okay, is that good for you, Gary? Are you happy now? I'll see if I can have Jim do a cameo appearance next month. He'll have to wear his, maybe we could tie him in. I'll have him call in on the phone next time, okay?
Yeah.
All right, very good.
I appreciate that.
Maintenance had 123 work orders. They got done for preventative maintenance, 58 work order requests. They've got 2 open work orders. The laboratory did, I wish they'd put the total. I'm gonna have her put the total. They did about 2,700 tests last month. It is a total, it's at the top. So the laboratory does a lot of good work. And then the refuse department, in October, we had 1,181 compact tons, 90 loose tons, 22 tons of grit, for a grand total of 1,293 tons of refuse we took to the transfer station and/or to the landfill. That seems to compare pretty closely with the average. Average for the year is 164, and we had 1164. We had 1270, so a little bit more than average. Any questions about any of those reports? Any other questions?
No.
Did you find any typos or wording problems in Stanford's report, Mr. Ettinger?
No, but I do have excuse me, I did not, it was an excellent report once again. I do have a question in regards to refuge. I was just going to speak up before you went there. On the second page of our of what you sent us in our packet, with regards to our compact tonnage, in just looking at it in a general sense, I was wondering, it's from 2016 to now 2020. Month by or year by year, annually, it looks like our compact continues to not completely, but seems to be trending in a increased manner.
Hey,
would there be a reason
Yeah, Holt.
for that?
Holt, I've explained this a couple of times before, and I think the reason is because in the previous years, in 16 and 17, they really did a very good job of not putting any of the household stuff into the trucks, like they have the dump trucks going around, and they put it all in there, and that's why the loose, if you look at the loose, was a lot higher. See the loose in 16 and 17, how it was a lot higher, now it's a lot lower in 19 and 20, and that's because we're just putting a lot of these household items right in with the compactor truck. So that's why I've made the comment before that, I don't even know if we should put this loose and compact on here anymore, but you just got to look at the total, and if you look at the total's really not going up, considerably. I mean, October was up a little bit compared to October of 16 and 17, but then if you look at August was actually down for 2020 compared to 2018. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So I think that...
Yeah, I don't recall having access to this second page over the last several months, and just wanted that question to... Thank you.
Well, it's a very good question, and the bottom line is, I don't think you should pay too much attention to the compact and loose. Just keep your eye on the total, because we're trying our best to get these piles picked up quick as we can, the best way we can. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, is that it for the reports?
That's it.
All right. Jim Myers, you have the floor now.
I don't really have anything to add too much. We will be working on, of course, continuing the Long Beach problem with the preparing for an application for the SRF bond and finalizing it, I should say. We will be looking at working on finalizing or getting final PER for the annexed area, for the sewers in the annexed area down on the southeast quadrant of the city. Those have to be in technically by December 31 of 2022. I'm sorry, 2022. And so it's not an emergency, but, those projects take a while. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to add that's not already covered by Michael, but I'll gladly answer any questions anyone may have.
Do anyone have any questions for Mr. Myers? Okay, Mr. Myers, thank you. We're going to go ahead and get approval of allow the revenues and tax levy claims for the payments.
This is Holt. I'll make that motion.
So we get a second.
I will second it. Tim Smith will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Will there be any old business?
Yeah, this is Holt, Mr. President, if I could.
Sure.
Michael, Mr. Cuss, I would appreciate for you to consider this as your reminder to address the vacation carryovers in our salary resolution to be given at next meeting. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Henning. New business. Will there be any new business? Will there be any new business? I'd like to get a motion to adjourn then.
This is Jeff. I'll motion to adjourn.
Will we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Next meeting, regular meeting is December the 16th, 2020. Thank you, gentlemen, and have a great evening.
Everybody have a good evening. Be careful out
Stay
there.
safe, everybody. Be healthy.
Yeah.
Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.